Hey everyone, my name is Nachum Russell, Russ to most of you. This is my friend Julie Starns from Good Decisions Dog Training in Ashland, Nebraska. For those of you who don't know what the show is, before we get into it, it's not a Q&A show. So if you have dog training questions, you're more than welcome to ask me, or I'm sure Julie, dog like personal dog training questions a different time. This is more of a show just to get to know each other, chat about dog training, chat about life, chat about whatever. You guys are more than welcome to join the conversation, though, in the comments section, wherever you're watching. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, hop in, say hi, join the conversation. But dog training questions are kind of skipped over. So that being said, let's jump right into it. Julie, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you are, all that stuff?
Okay, hey, I'm Julie Starns, Good Decisions Dog Training here in Ashland, Nebraska, right in between Lincoln and Omaha. And I train dogs anywhere from puppies just starting out, basic obedience training, behavior modification, dog reactivity, dog aggression, and everything that falls in between that.
And how did you get into all this? How did you get into training?
Oh, wow. I guess I've always kind of been training. I grew up on a farm, so lots of animals there. My dad was a huge animal lover, and we always had dogs, cats. And I guess technically I really got started with it when I started running the Ashland Dog Pound. And what that is, it's a facility where the police would pick up dogs running at large and bring them to the facility. Prior to there being a building, they used to take the dogs to the rodeo grounds and chain them up in the elements, and then the police officers would take care of them if they had time. So there was a need for a facility, a building, but it wasn't a rescue. And so one of my good friends ran the pound. She was moving out of state and talked me into taking it over. And little did I know what was involved. So I ran it for 8 years. It was 7 days a week, 365. And I also worked full-time jobs, in between. But I literally would walk in and I didn't know if I would have no dogs in or 5 dogs in, where they came from, what their temperaments were. I did not know. But they all had to be leashed up and taken outside to potty because we didn't have any fencing for them.
Right.
And so, I just got started. And then I worked at a boarding facility. That was a good insight, into dogs. I've always had dogs, but I think years ago when I had a couple of dogs that were, they each had different issues. I had a Great Dane with terrible separation anxiety that I adopted from the pound. I went outside one day and he broke a window to get outside to get to me. And my beagle would pee and poop all over his kennel and paint his kennel with his poop. Excuse me. So I had 2 different things going on, and getting rid of my dogs was not an option. And so I did reach out to a trainer at a time, and this is like 15 years ago. And basically I was told that no one could help me. And so I had to figure it out. But that's when I started to think, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not doing what they need, and I wasn't. I was all about the love, and I was all about giving them everything. Total freedom. And once I started to kind of tighten up and change myself, change the way I interacted with them, everything started to get better.
Yeah. And I think that's we all know that's the key part. As trainers, we all know that. But when you say you weren't officially a trainer yet, right? You weren't a training professionally. So when you say you realized it was you and you started to tighten up, what did that look like? What was that?
It looked like tremendous amounts of structure. When Dewey was pooping all over in his kennel, I stopped kenneling him. And then I would lock him in the bathroom while I went to work, and he destroyed my bathroom. And so I revisited the kennel, and I stopped letting my Great Dane Duke sleep in my bed because he destroyed 5 mattresses and a whole year He and I slept on the floor because I couldn't afford any more mattresses.
Wow.
And so I had to, and then I just started leash work and yes, basic obedience stuff, but I also started saying no. No, we're not going to do this anymore. And it changed. It changed everything. And both dogs went on to live very long and healthy lives. So,
And then at what point did you say, like, this is what I want to do? Like, I want to do this professionally, stop whatever you were doing previously for work and go all in with this?
So I always knew that I wanted to work with animals. I had horses. And so I was always drawn back to animals. But my mom, and I love her to pieces, it wasn't a real job to her.
Yeah.
It wasn't a real job to anybody. And in my mind, I didn't know if I could ever make a living at it and pay bills. So I didn't know how to go about it. So I just kept pushing it off to the side. And I got into accounting and I got into real estate and I did and I was miserable, but I kept going back to dogs. And then one day I failed miserably, and I hate to use the word failed. I moved to Las Vegas. My brother and sister-in-law were real estate agents there. And I quit my job of 12 years here, moved to Las Vegas. Jeff left behind and got my real estate license. That was so stressful. And the market crashed. And the whole country was affected, but Las Vegas was smashed. And here I am trying to sell real estate.
Right.
So I was there for 4 months. And I almost lost my house here in Ashland, couldn't pay my bills, was behind on everything. I drove back to Ashland and I said to my husband, I want to work with dogs in some capacity. And he said, you either need to open up a boarding facility or you need to start training. And that's when I really got serious about it. But first I had to catch up on the bills first.
Yeah. And when you jumped into it full time, were you like looking to work? Because I know you work with a lot of behavioral cases more than just like obedience stuff. Was that something that you were interested in, or you just like, I want to work with dogs, whatever it is, in any capacity?
I've been in rescue for a very long time and, dealt with a lot of rescue dogs that had some serious issues. And so when I first started, I went at it from, I want to work with all the rescues and I want to get these dogs not just adopted, but stay in the homes instead of repeat returns. And so that's how I really went about it. And so hard case dogs, difficult dogs, I was no stranger to that. So I was just willing to work with whatever dogs, came my way.
Yeah.
And I adopted a very difficult dog. She'd killed another dog prior to going into rescue. And the rescue, bless their hearts, I still work with them today. She came in knowing like 25 or 30 different commands. And that was wonderful. But she was so other dog aggressive, she was never going to get adopted no matter what commands she knew. And so I really started working hard with her. And then I ended up eventually adopting her because we just bonded so much. And she's great.
And how is she with dogs now?
She's great. She does have some limitations.
Right.
She hangs out and plays with my Nala, my Great Dane. I don't have her out in larger group socials because it makes her uncomfortable. And she doesn't need it.
Yeah.
Because she gets everything else she needs.
I think that right there is a very key part to it. And I'm like, you definitely see this a lot because you work with a lot of tough behavioral cases. You're not, from what I see, your work, it's generally not easy-go-lucky puppies, right?
No.
And like a lot of people have these goals for their dogs. Let's say a dog like, what's the dog's name who killed another dog? Callie. Like a dog like Callie, for example, right? And people reach out with all different high behavioral issue stuff. And they're like, oh, I want my dog to just be friends with other dogs and all these types of things. And it's like, yeah, that's great that you want that. But you said, and you're a trainer, you're a professional, you work with these things, but your dog has limitations and you've learned what those are and respect it. And that's the reason why the dog is thriving. I find like a lot of people struggle with that idea because they have this vision of what they want their dog to be without taking into consideration who the dog actually is, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I think that's a very hard part for a lot of owners to comprehend, but that's probably the reason why your dog is alive.
Yes, very much. She was in rescue in boarding for 4 years.
Wow.
And she happened to live at the boarding facility where I worked. She bit me 3 times trying to get at another dog. And I finally went to the rescue and I said, I need to be able to use the training tools on this dog and really get down to the nitty gritty training wise with her, or she won't live. And initially, after they learned that she had bitten me, they were like, oh my God, she's terrible. We probably better maybe put her down. I don't know. And I'm like, no, she's just terribly other dog aggressive. I can help her. And so, I did. But you're right. And that's where we come in as trainers. We have to help owners understand reality versus a wish list.
Yes.
We wish, we want, as opposed to what actually the dogs are capable of.
Yeah.
And, setting goals, owners setting goals for themselves and their dogs realistically.
Yeah. And it's finding that ceiling. I mean, I have my dog, like, he never killed another dog, but he was a bad dog. And I know his limitations. There are certain dogs that come in here and I don't, for the entire stay while they're with me, he has absolutely nothing to do with them besides at the most like being in place in the same room, but not going for walks with him, not interacting, not socials or anything like that. And to me, like, I'm okay with it because I respect him, right? I want respect from him. I have to respect him.
Exactly.
And I know that's going to make him just too uncomfortable where then it's unfair to expect anything of him.
Exactly.
That's a thing that a lot of owners struggle, that I find a lot of owners struggle with accepting, is your dog has limitations, right?
Yes.
And even if you want something for your dog that's greater than that, you can work towards it and never give up on working towards it. But also, like you said, be realistic with it.
Right. And I'm all about working towards goals, but also understanding that they may never come to fruition. It may never be a reality for your dog, but your dog can absolutely live a very full, happy, healthy life without doggy friends,
right?
Or cat friends, or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
So, but Callie, she's super helpful. She can be on place with another dog. We bring her out to walk with other dogs. We do existence walks. We do all things like that. But would I ever just put her out in the yard with a strange dog? No. I don't do that anyway. But
right, that's what I was gonna say. I don't think you're probably dumping a bunch of dogs together, anyways.
No.
That's usually not a good idea.
No.
Do you still work with rescues?
I do. At first, when I started, I've never considered myself to be a naive person, but I had goals and wants where I pictured me and rescues and other trainers all joining hands and singing Kumbaya and working for the better of dogs everywhere and making such a difference, And then reality slapped me upside the head. And so there are some rescues that I do not work with anymore, but I do have a few that I do work with and connect with, and we have a great relationship. So, but I had to reduce it a little for my own sanity. I've never ever belonged to a rescue. There's just a lot of stuff that goes on in rescues that isn't my jam. But Jeff and I have done a lot of rescuing on our own. But yeah.
And when the rescues that you do work with, I mean, first of all, props to them that they let somebody as evil as you work with them. But like, I'm assuming they allow you to use training tools and things like that, right?
Absolutely. And, there were a few in the beginning that took a little bit of convincing. Not that I pressured them into it, but I showed them the results that they could get, and that dogs were not only more adoptable, but staying in homes. But then you have to get past this, and I don't know if you've heard this very often, that balance training is only for bad dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to have a lot of conversations about that. I believe that balance training is for all dogs because it isn't even about the tools.
Right.
It's about a balance, and so yeah, I think a lot of minds were changed through seeing what dogs could learn and be capable of with good training.
So you mentioned something kind of in passing, that balance training is not just about the tools. It's about something else, and then you kind of let it go. Speak to that more, because I think that the world has this understanding of balance training as being the e-collar, prong collar trainers, right?
Right.
And there's more to it. So what do you mean by that?
Okay, going back to like 15 years ago with my Great Dane and my Beagle, I didn't use prong collars or e-collars. But I was still implementing balance training by setting boundaries, structure, routine, telling them no. And, they got a lot of verbal praise and positive stuff, but I had to have the other side too. I had to start saying no. And that's, I think, what people don't understand so much is when they hear balance training, their mind goes immediately to prong collars and e-collars.
Right.
I don't care if anybody uses tools or they don't, or what tools they use, but balance training goes beyond tools. It's so much more, and corrections and holding dogs accountable for what they know and implementing all of that is what balance training should be about.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started working with Marley, who's my first dog, I got a prong collar with him before I knew what balance training was.
Mm-hmm.
So I was using a prong collar, not 100% correctly, but as best as I can figure out how to do on my own. I didn't know any videos existed or anything like that at that point.
Right.
I just was like, this is not working. Let me try the next step up, right? But what really changed it, following up on what you're saying, what really changed it wasn't the prong collar. I mean, the prong collar definitely helped, and I'm all for them, and I use them. But it wasn't what actually made the change. What really made the change was when I finally learned that there's a way of living with my dog that's going to change, right? Yeah. And the way of living in terms of everything is training, and it's not just about basic commands, and the way that we interact with each other, and the way we exist with each other, and the way I use affection, and what does structure even mean, right? Because so much of this stuff is thrown around, because if I say, yeah, implement structure, and I tell another trainer that, it's like, you know what that means. But to so many people, as me, as that owner, if you would have told me implement structure in your dog's life, I would have looked at you like you're crazy. What is that supposed to mean, right?
Right.
But when I finally discovered what that means, right, is, like you said, setting boundaries and having some sort of routine. It doesn't mean your day is exactly the same every day, but a routine, and focusing on everything as a training opportunity and a time to either gain respect from your dog or lose respect from your dog was really when we made that big shift. It wasn't, the tools definitely helped, but I think what the tools do is, once you understand all of that, what structure is, how to live with your dog in a training lifestyle, routine, accountability. Once you understand what all of that looks like, the tools help to kind of translate it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
But we can actually do any of that without understanding why and what life itself should look like without the tools even. The tools are not really going to do the work.
No. And I had to, and you're right, not everybody understands what structure means or what boundaries mean. I had to take away a lot of freedoms that I was allowing my dogs to have. Well, they had all freedoms. They had they ran the house. My Beagle Dewey was peeing on my cats. They'd just sit there and take it, but he'd pee on my cats. And he'd look at me while he was doing it like, what are you going to do?
Right.
And I was all like, I don't know. But then I started, okay, no more free roam. I'm going to take back control of my house. It didn't mean I didn't love them, but it meant that I needed to take control. I needed to be a leader to them, not a pushover, and not something that they could just pee on and, laugh at me about. I mean, I have to get really serious. And once I started doing that, I noticed a change almost immediately, and they were happier. That was the beautiful part.
Yeah.
They were so much happier.
That's the most misunderstood part of this whole way of training that we call balance training. I don't even like that term anymore, but the way that we're discussing training, balance training, that's the most misunderstood part of it, is that everyone thinks you're going to take away some sort of happiness from the dogs.
Right.
I understand where people are coming from with that, because it's like you're restricting freedom. How are you going to say that a dog is happier, right? You're telling a dog all the time what it could and can't do. Like, how is that going to create happiness? But what we're essentially doing is taking a load off the dog's shoulders. Like, you don't have to think about any of that anymore. I'll do it all for you, right? And it completely changes the way the dog feels about life, because they don't have to worry. It's why this whole way of training works so well for anxiety and for fear. Yes. Because we take away the worry. They don't have to be concerned anymore, and they can finally just chill.
Yeah. And I often say that I want to take the weight of the world off of this dog's shoulders and set some clear routine, and they don't have to constantly be frenzied in their head, worried about what am I going to do next? I don't even know what I'm going to do next. And so I take that away, and then you start to see a sense of calmness come over a dog. And I do that immediately. The training starts the minute a dog walks in my gate. We're training.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of clients that have had a lot of time has been wasted, and the dogs get worse. So they've already gone a very long time, the clients and the dogs, without help. Why would I take a long time? When I can start implementing it right away.
Right. And what do you implement right away? Like, what changes immediately when you take that leash?
Okay. Typically, dogs want to jump up on me, or they want to bark at me, or they want to growl at me. All of that gets stopped immediately. I get dogs in that have never been kenneled before, whether they couldn't be or they just weren't. And they're like, oh, hell no, I'm not going in that kennel. Yes, you are. And then you start to see that mind shift that we talked about earlier. They're like, oh, okay. And then once you stop all the unwanted stuff immediately, then you can start to get to the obedience training and the good stuff and the fun stuff, and get them out more, where before they couldn't even go out anywhere.
Right. I think the behavior and the mindset shift generally has to come first before anything else, because the way so many people think about it is, if I teach my dog sit down, stay, come, and heel, my dog is trained, right? And I've gotten a lot of dogs in that they went through, let's say, purely positive training, or the owners worked with them, so they know a lot of things that they should be doing.
Yep.
But it doesn't change the fact that they bark, they jump, they bite, they growl, and all those bad behaviors, and that's why they're coming. And you can teach your dog 1.5 million tricks and commands, but if you don't teach a state of mind, right, and a certain level of respect and a way of behaving, not just things that you know how to do when you're told to do it, but a way of living in general, then you're never going to really enjoy life with your dog. It's not cool to have a dog that can give paw then bites.
Right. And that was my Callie. Like I said, she knew 25 or 30 commands, but she would still bite, and she would still growl, and she was still an ass and dangerous.
Yeah.
So I didn't give a shit. Sorry. I didn't care if she knew sit, roll over.
That's strike one.
Damn it.
I'm joking. You're good.
But I didn't care if she could play the piano blindfolded.
Right.
She's got to stop this crap. And then we can move on to other stuff. And that's where the world starts opening up for dogs, instead of getting smaller, like some people may think. You know, Callie lives a very full, wonderful life. We had to work hard for it.
Yeah, simply the fact that she's not sitting in that shelter is, and like, yeah, great, you've implemented a ton of rules and restricted her freedom, people want to say, but like, she's out of that kennel, she's out of that cage, she's living in a home with other dogs, with an owner, with a lot going on, and she has a life, right? Whereas she wouldn't have. And I think that's the part that so many people miss, is what's the other option, right? What is life actually? Let's be real about it. What is life for your dog? As much as you say you'll never give it up, what is life going to look like for your dog if you don't restrict their freedom for a while, if you don't have boundaries, if you don't learn to say no and to have no that has a meaning to it, right? And you don't do all these quote unquote mean things, then what is life going to look like? To me, it's a lot meaner to have a dog that can never go for a walk and see nature and see the world, and a dog that stays in a kennel most of its life and stays in the house when everyone goes out. Like, that's not a life for a dog. Owners don't deserve it. Dogs don't deserve it. And it's looking past that. People have a hard time looking past the immediate mean stuff that us trainers do, right? And the immediate restrictions and all those things that we do, and seeing what comes out of it. Like, what's the reason behind it? What are you actually gaining out of it? That's the part that I try to encourage people to look at a lot, is don't focus just on like the shitty mean stuff that you see me doing, or you see any trainer doing, or that I tell you to do. Look at the results it brings, right? And think about what you want out of life with your dog, and that's the way to get there. So yeah, it's not fun necessarily,
right?
But it's the fun that you gain from it that you should be focusing on.
Right. And I always tell my clients, this stuff is for now. It may not be forever. Yes, you will be training in some capacity, and it becomes a part of your lifestyle. But the loads of routine and structure and all of that stuff you may not need down the road. But what you do now will help you have a better dog in the future.
Right.
You know, and my dogs, it's a part of our life. You know, I don't necessarily make each one sit and wait before we go outside, but we're always training in some way. And, you know, it's life. It's just our day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. And the thing, let's say, like you mentioned, sitting before going outside and small things like that, the reason why it doesn't matter as much for you, right, is because there's this whole way of life that's implemented so that those tiny things necessarily don't matter as much. And the reason why it matters for an owner is because generally the dogs that are coming to us for training, they need a full reboot. Their whole system needs to be reset, and the owners need to learn to reset it too, because just as much as the dog is used to doing things a certain way, the owner is. And if we break it down to very, very small things, that every single thing has a way to do it, when to do it, how to do it, and make that a routine, that's when you'll be able to eventually tweak it to your lifestyle, like what you've done, right?
Exactly.
And like the way we make it just a part of our lives. But if you don't first go kind of all in, completely change everything, like even the tiny stuff like waiting by the door, coming out of the crate, those small things that seem meaningless, if you don't change all those, you're going to have a lot harder time being able to tweak it to your lifestyle and loosen up down the line, which I think is the goal. When I send dogs home, I tell people, like, I want you to make it into your lifestyle. I don't want you living in your house the way I live in mine. You're not me. But just do the things that I tell you first so that you could get there. Because the way you've been doing it until now obviously is not working, right?
And that's why the dog is with us.
Right.
Because it hasn't been working. And, you know, I never blame or shame an owner because they don't know exactly how to go about it, which is why I love board and trades, because I can do all that heavy lifting. And, you know, there are times when I'm working with a dog that I know if an owner was doing it, they wouldn't do it because it would make them too uncomfortable. You know, it's like taking a dog outside of their comfort zone. The minute a dog starts to push back, owners would be like, okay, no, I can't. The dog's uncomfortable, the dog's sad, the dog's whatever. And I'm like, I know enough to know this dog can do it, and we're going to do it. And I call it push-pull, when to push forward, when to pull back a little bit. And especially with the extremely fearful dogs, you've got to know how far you can push at what time then you need to pull back just a little bit more, you know?
Right.
And in order to best help them through their fears. But, you know, you get a dog that, I don't know, gets frightened and poops itself, or squawks. That's a big one. I don't know if you've had any screamers in.
Not recently, but yeah.
No. And it isn't because they're in pain, but it's kind of become their default to scream. If I scream, everybody stops putting pressure on me.
Right.
And it's worked for them. And no, we don't want dogs to scream, but I have to work them through it to where they're like, wow, I don't need to scream. This wasn't so bad. But yeah, owners would see that and be like, no, we're stopping. We're not going to ever do this again. And then they say they're stuck, you know?
Yeah, so the thing is understanding that, like you said, the dog's not in pain. Obviously, if the dog is limping and it's hurting its foot, we're not going to drag it down the street, right? But a dog that's like screaming in like a temper tantrum or whatever you want to call it, it's like you said, it's what they know works, right? Until now, as soon as they let out that scream, everyone dropped what they were doing and said, all right, buddy doesn't want to do this. We're going to leave him alone, right?
Right.
And the dogs need to learn, like, your way of coping, your way of trying to deal with things and being in control of the situation, it doesn't work anymore, right? And that's where the pushing through discomfort comes in, so that it's so important, because dogs learn how to train their owners really well, when to shut up and leave them alone.
Absolutely.
And most owners fall for it right away, because no one wants to hurt their dog, understandably.
It hurts the heart, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, I don't like it. I don't want a dog to scream, but dogs will also growl, bark, lunge, because it works to get people to back off. And then the dog's like, hey, I can make these guys go away, and then I don't have to do it. And, you know, you got to work them through that and let them know that kind of behavior isn't going to fly anymore. They're going to be fine, but they just can't do that anymore.
Yeah. The whole thing is really teaching a dog how to cope, right?
Coping skills.
Yeah, because they do what works. It's very simple. And dogs are very simple. I mean, they're complex animals, but they're also very simple at the same time. It's like they do what works.
Yeah.
I mean, if they see that something's working, they're going to continue doing it because it's the easiest way.
Yes.
Dogs, like, I mean, I'll take the easiest route too if I could, right? Everyone would. Why not?
Why not?
Right. And that's what dogs, the way they live. And that one time when they show their teeth and the owner walks away from them and now the toy is theirs, it's so simple. They never, like, that's what I'll do from now on. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of people, I think, misunderstand about punishment is a big part of it really is just saying that's not going to fly because it doesn't work for you anymore. Right. It's not like I'm angry at the dog for showing me its teeth. I need to teach the dog that that's not going to work, so that I can now teach it a better way to work, so that it could live with its owner and have a good life. It's simple.
And what, like you said, and live alive. I mean, I'm all about keeping dogs alive. And, you know, I had a German Shepherd, and he came to me, man. He was all teeth and lunge and growl. And the minute he walked in the gate, he pulled that shit. And the owner said, we need to take him home. We can't leave him here with you if he's going to do that. I said, he's going to be fine. And I punished him for it. And we moved on. And he comes back now for boarding, and his tail's a wagging, and he's all happy to be here. And the flip side to that dog was he'd been kicked out of some vet clinics for the same behavior. Hey, Mr. Veterinarian, you come at me with that needle, I'm going to show you all of my pearly whites, and you're going to back off. Well, I have a wonderful vet here in my town, and I took the dog over there, and the first visit, it was a shit show. I mean, this dog was lunging and growling, but he quickly realized I wasn't going to let him get away with it, and my vet wasn't going to let him get away with it. And then he started to settle. And then the next time we took him back, he was all like, oh, well, this is not such a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, but had I said to his owners, you can never take this dog to the vet ever, You can't ever take him out on walks. You can't ever do any of this, anything. What kind of a life is that for a dog or the
Right.
people?
And the people. That's the important part too. And the people. The life becomes miserable for the dogs and for the owners.
Yes.
And what's an interesting thing for that, I think really only trainers, unless you have an owner who's really, really putting in the work hard, but trainers get to recognize this a lot, is the certain level of like ease that you see the dog settle into once they learn that that's not going to work, right? And that they can rely on you for what's going to work. It's almost like their facial expression changes.
Absolutely.
I've said, if I take a picture of a dog on day one when they come to me, as soon as I meet them and right before they go home, it looks like a different dog. Their facial expression changes because it affects them physically. It's like a person who's living in constant stress and anxiety, and that they're always like, forehead's always wrinkled and they're always nervous and like crunched and all that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they go for some therapy and they learn how to work through their shit and they look like a new person.
They
right?
do. And that's why I like to show the minute a dog comes in, I do that little intake video thing. And then I like to show the progress that they make throughout the training. And then at the very end, when they're ready to go home, much different than the original intake. Right. Like completely, and I've heard it over and over again from my clients. My dog's a completely different dog. And they are.
Yeah. Mama. And I think that's the part that the naysayers have to really open their eyes to see it, right?
Right.
Because they're missing out on something that to me is a beautiful thing. Me, it's like when you feel that energy shift from the dog, it's a beautiful thing to experience, to be a part of, to see it, because you've changed the dog, right? When owners say their dog is a different dog, it's because they really are.
They really are.
You're changing a dog's whole psyche for the better, putting them at ease for their life, whatever the situation is, really, even if it's whether it's anxiety, aggression, or even really just simple, like learn not to be overly excited all the time. You're putting the dog at ease, because living in that overexcited state is also not happy, right? It's not even the extreme cases. It's all of them that I see this with.
Yes. And, you see it in puppies too. Puppies that come in and all they know is play and fun and nipping and everything. And then you start to kind of shape it for them and show them some structure and routine and, do that kind of thing. You really start to see them grow and start to mature into a really going to be a great dog.
Yeah.
I have a dog in right now and I love her to pieces. I mean, I love them all. I don't always like the behaviors they come in with, but I do love them all. But she had what I call FU eyes. And she'd look at me with those FU eyes and I knew it was coming. She would try to jump up and gut punch you as hard as she could. And she's a pretty big dog. It's like a kangaroo punch. And she doesn't do it anymore. But now I see, she's only a week in, but I still see sometimes she'll give me those FU eyes, like thinking about it. But I know I can't. But she's already made the shift from frenzied and not listening and kangaroo punching to you see her really working through things and starting to figure it out. And she's much softer now. And she's fun. And it's like you could see the weight being taken off of her. And I think that's the coolest thing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's my favorite part of when I'm working with the dogs, meaning I love working with owners. So that's probably my favorite part of the whole process, really. But my favorite part of when I'm working with dogs is seeing that shift. There's a moment with every single dog where they make that shift and it's like a switch goes off in their head. And that's when I know it's like, all right, it's working. We're getting there, right? And some dogs, it's the first day. Some dogs, it's a week and a half in, and every dog, it's at a different stage.
Right.
When you see that switch go, it's like, all right, I know we're on the right track, and it's going to be, for the most part, smooth sailing from here. We'll have some bumps, but the dog and I are now on the same page. That's
exactly.
And that's for me. When I see that, I always celebrate. I'm so excited about it.
Oh, and it's like every little win like that, you should celebrate that.
Yeah.
You don't have to throw the dog a party and all that kind of stuff, but mentally as a trainer, you should take a moment and kind of celebrate that and know that you are now headed in a much better direction than when you started.
Yeah.
And you're right. I have, and I know every trainer says this, but I have some of the best clients ever. And because they already know when they hire me that they're going to have to do some work. Like I say it, I repeat it, they know it, and there's no way around it. And we have a really good decisions dog training family here. And I'm really proud of that. I'm not just some kind of a money machine where I take their money, train their dog, hand it back, we're done. It's like I really care, and I do like to keep in contact. And I love it when I post about a dog and my clients comment and then, show what their dog is doing at home. And I've heard this, you maybe have heard this too. When my videos play, I have clients tell me that their dog will go and put themselves on place.
Yeah, I saw somebody comment that. I think it was on your page recently.
Yeah.
Right? On one of your posts. I was like looking at some of your posts recently, and I saw somebody comment that. And it's, yeah, I've gotten that text from people who are like, oh yeah, we're listening to you talk or a video and my dog is like sitting or running to its place. I'm like, all right, just play my voice the whole time and your dog will be fine.
Just put our voice on repeat.
Yeah. But that's as cool as that is for us, it also, like, owners should recognize how powerful that is, because we have dogs. My program is generally 3 weeks. For like serious behavioral cases, it's 4 weeks sometimes, but 3 weeks, 4 weeks out of a whole life, right? So dogs are coming to me usually as adults. Most dogs that I work with, I get some younger dogs now because everyone got dogs, but like most of the dogs that I work with are adults or about to be adults, whatever, in that older stage, right? So they know their owners for a while, and they've lived with their owners for a while. And we get these dogs for 3, 4, whatever, however long your program is. I don't even know how long your program is.
Typically 2 weeks, unless it's serious, and then it's 3 to 5, depending. Right. So yeah.
So we have dogs anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks, which is literally nothing in the span of a dog's life. Yeah. But a month or two later, the dog hears our voice and is responding to it. And it doesn't show that we have magic. That's not the point that I'm getting at. It's not about how cool we are. Yeah. It's the fact of like,
we are,
right. But that's not what proves it. But it's like, if owners recognize the power in that and that they can do the same thing, right? Because you can get it even better. You should have it even better than us. You live with this dog 24/7 for its whole life.
Absolutely.
And if 3 weeks or 2 weeks with us and the dog still responds to it a month, 2 months, 3 months later, or when they come back for boarding, what does that say for how you can build your relationship when you have it your whole life? And how you can condition your dog when you have it for your whole life, right? Because as much as like people like to think that dog trainers have some sort of magic touch, like I know I don't, right? And I don't try to pretend like I have that. Like I hate when people say dog whisper and things like that, because I don't want that. I do things that work. And if owners understood how powerful that really is, because 3 weeks is nothing and you can transfer that to your life forever, like your dog should be responding to your voice like that over the phone too, immediately.
And that's an excellent point. A lot of excellent points. There is no magic. My stepdaughter actually got me a bag that says I'm a dog trainer, not a magician.
I love it.
And I like dog whisper. I don't like that either. What we do though is we do the things that work. And I can speak for me, and I think I can speak for you. We don't half-ass it.
Right.
We are all in. Like I am all in every day that I'm training with dogs. And, I'm currently, and ever since I started, I do work 7 days a week and I work 365 days a year. Yes, some days are a little bit lighter than others, like Christmas or something like that. But I am always working and I'm always all in. Like I don't wake up one day and go, I just kind of want to nap all day and watch Netflix. And I'll get to that training stuff tomorrow. We were hired to do a job and we have to do it. but I tailor each dog's program differently to fit the needs of the dog and to fit the goals of the owner.
Yeah.
And that's what's important to me. And that's why I do the videos in the way that I do them. I do them for the owners so that they can already get a jump start on what things are going to look like when their dog comes home. You know, I ask them to watch how I'm holding the leash. How do we do a down? If a dog breaks place, what do we do? Because inevitably a dog will go home and they'll break place. You know, they've never done place at home before maybe, or they don't find their owners believable. And so they're like, yeah, screw that place command. I don't have to do it. And so I want to set them up for success by having them watch the videos through the course of the training. And yeah, sometimes we get silly and sometimes we have fun, but that's all part of it too. Like Saturday, my husband was so excited. He found a cardboard box that had Sasquatch on it. And I put it on my head and I was dancing around and Lily filmed me. And so I posted it. Who the hell cares? I was having fun.
Yeah.
So,
But that is training. Like, to me, that is training for so many reasons. Dog owners are not going to train 24/7, right?
No.
But what the dogs have to learn is how to behave even when that's not going on,
Exactly.
right? So what I've started doing a lot recently in the past like 6 months is Saturdays are generally the dogs get walks and they do place time.
Yep.
And that's it. And I struggled with doing that for a while till I spoke to a couple other trainers who were like, if you train dogs every single day, all day, active training, you're not actually setting them up for success at home where they're going to be left at home for 8 hours a day.
Right.
They're going to be ignored a lot of times because dog owners I don't have time to talk to dogs all day. I don't really want to talk to them all day. I like to hang out with them.
Right.
And dogs, that's really that's the important part of the training. Because Absolutely. It's amazing if a dog can recall from 100 yards away and do all sorts of fun things to show on videos. But if they can't just chill when the owners have a family meal, right? Yep. They can't be quiet in their crate when everyone wants to go to sleep. Like simple things that are day-to-day life, that's where the real struggles are. Yep. You know? Like that's more important than anything. That's more important than the off-leash stuff that is great. And but if you can't go for a walk and be chill in the house, then the rest of the training is kind of worthless to me.
Exactly. And that's and another excellent point. I gear my training towards real life. So I do a lot of place command with dogs while I'm in the kitchen cooking. Maybe I'm dancing in the kennel room. And when I had the cardboard box on my head, that was when the dog was outside in the yard who would kangaroo punch every time somebody would move. And in the video, you just see her walking around and she's not kangaroo punching me. So there's a method to all of my madness, but you're absolutely right. We can't be so stringent and strict every single day because that's not how real life is going to be when the dogs go home. And yes, I like dogs to walk in a heel, but I don't worry about a perfect anything, I want them in a heel, but if they're a quarter of an inch one way or another, unless they're a massive puller, then I want them a little bit behind me. But I don't get bunched up about perfection. I want this to be real life where the owners can have the dog home. They can be outside grilling and the dog is ignoring the grill, whether they're on place or they're just out in the yard hanging out. Yeah.
And that's the part that really matters, right? It's life. It's what does life look like with your dog, not what does training look like with your dog. And even though when we say training, like I understood what you said, 24/7 training. I got that you didn't mean that you're practicing recalls 24/7.
No.
But I want people to understand, I want owners to understand that crate time is not mean. It's part of life and it's part of training, right? And place time, it's part of life and it's part of training. And guests coming over to the house, it's part of life, it's part of training. It's all part of training because it's all part of life. And we're not training dogs to do tricks. We're training dogs how to live, right? Because that's where people struggle. They don't struggle with teaching paw, right? Anyone can go on YouTube and learn how to teach paw. It's very simple. And don't even ask me, guys. Go on YouTube and figure it out. But anyone can like teach tricks, right?
Sure.
Like we said in the beginning, like you're a dog with 25 tricks, and she still wanted to kill dogs. Like it doesn't change anything about how they live.
Right. And you know, if that's something that owners want to take our training as a launching pad and get into other things,
Go for it.
Diving or whatever, go for it, you know, because now you've got a really solid foundation to build on, and the sky's the limit for you if that's what you want, if that's what your dog is capable of doing. But you know, I always take in what owners tell me, what they write down on their contract, the specifics of what they want me to work on for their dog, knowing we're going to do so much more. Rarely do I get someone in that says, yeah, I want you to work on car rides with my dog. But we go ahead and do that anyway, because that is a part of life as well. Right. So I try to like cover, you know, all the stuff.
And a lot of people don't even think about, like, if you have a dog that's, let's say, biting, right? And they're like, just stop him from biting, right? They're not even thinking about like, what's the potential? Like he can go for a calm car ride for 4 hours with you and be a part of your life with that. Most owners don't even think about that because it's the top priority is whatever's the worst thing is.
Yes.
But once that worst thing is stopped and that's out of the dog's mind, the potential is just endless then.
Right. Then we can start building and building and building, you know? Yeah. And I have had owners ask for some specific things. I had a little Chihuahua that the owners flew a lot, and they needed him to be able to ride in a doggy backpack safely. And you know, he wanted to bite us at times when Lily and I would put him in the backpack. And at the end of the training, he's all happy in that little backpack. Now he rides in a basket on the owner's bicycle.
That's awesome.
In the front. They have just like, bam, taken it to next level.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I don't remember who it was. I read this quote from some trainer a long time ago. So whoever it is, I'm sorry, I'm not quoting you. Generally, I like to quote people if it's a good quote. But they said that all the fancy stuff is just the basics done really well. Right? And if you don't have that foundation that you're talking about, then there is nothing fancy. Like none of that's going to exist. Like you're not taking a dog dock diving if it can't be around other dogs. Right? You're not going in that basket, like you said, if it can't simply sit in the knapsack nicely. All these things that it builds on, you got to have a solid foundation. The foundation starts at home. It starts with day-to-day life and what that looks like with you.
Absolutely. You know, just this morning, I've had not lifetime, but a long-time client. Recently, the dog has started to struggle with going to the vet. And so I bopped over this morning and met them at the vet, and he wanted to put on the brakes, and then he saw the vet and he kind of got growly and snappy. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. And so we got him up on the scale, and then we got him up on the table, and we got, you know, his vet work done, got his toenails trimmed, which he also has started to dislike. We had to work him through that stuff. But I explained to the owner, and I have an awesome vet, by the way, you know, if we had just let him, you know, balk at it and say, okay, we're not ever going to the vet again, you know, what good is that? Like, right. So I took the foundational training that I knew he knew, incorporated that into his vet visit, also corrected him for some really snotty, shitty behavior today. And, you know, in a matter of a few minutes, easy peasy, he's out of the vet office. We're done.
Right.
And that's part of my follow through training, if I can do it for people, because once people sign on with me, I don't send them home from a boarded train and say, okay, we're done. I never want to see you again. You know, I'm with them for the life of the dog as support and as a launching pad for questions and, you know, help. And so it was a really cool thing to see the dog today kind of work through that, but I was there to help, and we got it done.
Yeah. And my number one piece of advice that I find myself giving to my clients whose dogs are back home and they start to struggle with something, right, is go back to basics.
Yes.
Right? Because the basics is what's going to get you through this. Like, another similar story to what you just said, but I had a dog who I know her since she's 14 weeks old, 12 weeks old actually. And she did my puppy program. And then when she was older, she came back for the full 3-week program. And she's an awesome dog with awesome owners. And one day she decides she's not going up steps anymore. Like she just not.
I saw that.
And it wasn't like she was hurt. There was no fear. It was just, I'm not doing this. It was very much just, I don't want to, and I'm not doing it. And that's that. Right. And I told her owners, like, and obviously her own, for everyone who's like, do you use food? Yes. Her owners tried to use food, and they tried to use treats, and they tried to coax her. She wasn't going up. She knew she was going to get food in the kitchen either way. So it was not happening. And so I said, go back to basics, put a leash on your dog, use the pressure and release that your dog understands of leash pressure, and start to get it. And I went over and I worked them through it a little bit, but all I did was go back to the very first few things that I had taught that dog, which was pressure and release and marker words, Marley, and marker words, and going right back to that basic stuff. And within 10 minutes, she was going up and down the steps we added a command to, and she was doing it. And that's the importance of, I think, really a solid foundation, whether you're working with a trainer or on your own, is making sure that the dog understands whatever language you're using to train, which, like, I was using pressure and release in this situation, right? Making sure the dog truly understands what it is, because when they really, really understand it well, it becomes a language that sticks, that could be used to communicate anything you want.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting because dogs do get like that sometimes once they go home, and then they're like, I don't want to do it.
Right.
And then I think one of the biggest things that owners get away from too quickly is the leash, because everybody's focused on off-leash freedom, which is great. It's fantastic if your dog has 100% recall. But don't forget about the leash.
Yeah, one of the most underrated training tools.
Man, it's the best. And I have owners that are like, well, I have to put eardrops in my dog, and they run away from me. They won't run away from you if you have them on a leash.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to pick that leash back up and keep utilizing it. I'm not as a crutch or, like whatever, but it's so valuable in so many situations that I think people's minds are so focused on off-leash everything. Put that leash back on that dog.
Yeah.
You'll be pleased with what you see. And
you'll have a better off-leash experience too.
Exactly.
That's what so many people don't get. You don't get off-leash without a leash. It doesn't happen.
No, it really doesn't. I'm all about off-leash if a dog, like I said, has 100% recall. But most people that I train with and for and myself, there are leash laws. Right. So my main focus is getting dogs to be able to walk in a nice heel, not be reactive to other dogs, not be aggressive on leash, not explode at the sight of a squirrel. That's the big part of my training program. All of my personal dogs are off leash trained, off the physical leash trained, but with e-collars on as my safety backup. If I need it, I need it. It's like a seatbelt. I hate wearing seatbelts, but I do, hoping I don't need it, but it's there if I do need it.
Yes, well said. Yeah. That's really what it is. I mean, and for owners specifically, and trainers who want to use e-collars use it. Like, I use e-collars on my dogs too. Well, 2 of my dogs. But like the thing that makes no sense is people running away from a tool, right? And like you said, you don't like wearing a seatbelt, but you also probably don't like getting into a car accident and not having it on, right? And no one looks to need their seatbelt. No one looks to drive next to a drunk driver. But the reality is we drive next to drunk drivers, and we're on the road, and there's other assholes on the road. And it's your responsibility to keep yourself as safe as possible from those things, right?
Absolutely.
And that's really all that the e-collar specifically is supposed to be once the dog is fully trained on it. It's there for that what ifs, the just in case, the real world stuff that comes up. Yeah. And when it comes to owners using it, it's like, you're not a trainer.
Right.
You should use whatever you need, like Absolutely. Anything. Again, if your dog is on leash the rest of its life and your life is good.
Who
right?
cares?
Like, who cares? Exactly. And it's all about what's going to work for you, what's going to make you happy, what's going to make your relationship with your dog work, and
Right?
not what like people's standards, because that's the part that's just going to fuck with your head and mess you up.
Totally. And dog owners should have the right to use whatever tools they want to or don't want to.
Right.
Know? If you want to train a dog with a violin, I could give a shit less if it works.
Make a video. I just want to see.
Right? I want to see that video. Yeah. But I don't give a shit. Like, whatever works best for you and your dog, have at it. But if you're struggling in any way, I just want people to know that you have choices, you have options. And yeah. I always tell everybody, like, I don't know if you belong to any dog training pages or any pages.
I try to stay out of them.
It's like, man, your head, like my head just goes. But I always put on their research. If people are looking for a trainer, research them.
Right.
And see what's out there. Because I have had a lot of clients tell me they hired me because of my videos. And because I'm real, like I'm not like all made up with makeup and, I don't know, one day I might have poop in my hair. I don't know, but like it's real life stuff.
Right.
And that's the only way I know how to be. But I've had a lot of clients say, we hired you because you're real and you do show results. And I hear this more often than not. We've noticed in your videos, you never raise your voice. You don't get angry. And I don't. It doesn't do any good to get angry or frustrated or yell at a dog or anything like that. I'm just like, no, that's not how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
So there are options out there for people. And I would like there to continue to be options out there for people. And for people to choose whatever is best for them and their dogs. It doesn't matter. Like I said, if you can train your dog with a violin, cool.
Yeah, my content, and I'm sure you feel the same way. My content is not for the people who don't want it, right? No. Like if I'm giving advice and you're like, well, I didn't need to do that with my dog, I'm extremely happy for you.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And if it's advice that works for you, I'm happy I put it out. And that's really it. It's like, like you said, I don't care. I'm not chasing people down the street and be like, why aren't you having a prong collar on your dog? Like, I don't give a shit if you love that your dog pulls, because I've had people tell me I like when my dog pulls. Good. Like, I'm happy for you. I just, like you said, I want struggling owners to know that it's not a hopeless situation.
Right.
There's hope. There is help. You can change everything in your life. Your life can be completely different with your dog than you ever imagined. And I want to give a little glimpse of that, at least to owners to get it. And that people should see that. And if your life is as perfect as you want it to be with your dog because it shits on your bed and you love that, I don't care. I'm happy for you. That's it. Like, I don't care.
That's great. And you're right. I just want people to know. And like I said, my videos are specifically for the clients. If somebody else gets some takeaway from them, wonderful.
Yeah, people definitely do, because what you shoot the clients is helpful for anyone who's struggling.
Right. And sometimes, like if I'm doing a cooking video, people are like, screw the training. What was the recipe?
Yeah, what's the recipe? You post some good food.
So we're foodies here, man. And that shows. It shows on me. It doesn't show on Jeff. Son of a bitch. But
no, you show like all this smoked meat and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that looks good.
But that's actually a part of the training too, because all the time I hear, well, we're grilling outside and our dog stole the hamburgers off the hot grill. I had a client, the dog got up on the dining room table at Thanksgiving and took the turkey and ran and ate the whole thing, bones and all, on Thanksgiving Day.
That was my dog.
Oh my God, your dog did that too?
Well, he didn't do it with turkey, but my mom made like for one of the Jewish holidays, she made like a huge stuffed salmon. And when Marley was bad, he jumped up on the table as soon as it came out of the oven. And I guess he was being unsupervised because he didn't need supervision. He was a good free dog. And he jumped up and devoured that thing.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that was my dog. Like all these stories that people say, I'm like, yeah, my dog did that. He did all of that.
Holy crap on a cracker, man. I've never had a dog jump up on the table and do it, but I've had dogs do, you're like, what the hell stuff,
Yeah.
you know? But I hear a lot of interesting things from my clients and things that could kill their dogs. You know, sometimes people don't take that seriously enough. Not your clients, not my clients, but you'll hear people, oh, my dog ate 10 socks and it was actually kind of funny because no, it's
Right.
never funny. And that's something you can stop that immediately.
Yeah. And it should be stopped immediately. Like, it's life and death.
It is like that.
There's no reason to let it happen even one more time, ever.
No. And, there's a lot that goes into that, start restricting their freedom. Obviously, they can't handle free roam of the house. I saw just the other day on Facebook, somebody's dog, not around here, but somebody's dog ate an electrical cord and died.
Damn.
Okay. Probably dogs should have been in a crate.
Right.
I don't know the whole situation, so I'm not judging it, but, a lot of people out there dislike crates or caging their dogs. I'm all for it if it keeps the dog alive.
Yeah, as much as people are like, it's like, throw all the training reasons out, because I can do an hour show just talking about how good for a dog's mind a crate is. But all that out the window, if your dog is in a crate and you don't put anything in that crate, there is nothing there that can kill it.
No.
And it's that simple. And no matter how good your dog is, it's a dog.
Yes.
Why risk it? To me, that in itself is enough of a reason to just kennel up your dog when you're not supervising it or when you're too busy to watch it. It's such a simple thing, and it can literally be the difference between your dog living another 10 years or 2 more hours, and that's it. It's so simple.
Exactly. And you're right. There's all kinds of gruesome, stories out there that have happened to dogs, but, if it's a difference between living and dying, I'm going to crate my dog.
Yeah.
Every time.
Simple thing.
Yeah. And it's not mean. It's like, when did it become in people's minds that crating your dog was mean or abusive?
Well, when did it become that boundaries is mean, that accountability is mean, that punishment is mean? Like, everything is mean now. Anything that's not here's a cookie is mean.
Exactly. You're right. Right. I was raised by a balanced mom and dad, if that's the word we're going to use. And I think you and I need to come up with a different word for balanced training. I don't know.
Let's just call it dog training, because that's what it does.
Like dog training work.
I think when you're missing the balance, it's not actually dog training. So let's just call it dog training.
Right. But there were consequences for shitty behavior when I was growing up. And believe it or not, and I know it's really hard to believe, I was a boundary pusher. And and I had a lot of consequences until I finally realized that it sucked. If I screwed up enough, my consequences were serious. It wasn't like I got my cell phone taken away or, because we didn't have cell phones back then. But, I was stripped of all privileges except for school and eating, that's how I was raised. And I'm thankful for that every single day. But, if
I called it practical training, and I like that a lot.
Yeah. But if I didn't fuck up and I didn't, break every rule, I got to do some really fun stuff. And not only was my mom, but she was also my teacher at school. And so there was no escape.
Yeah, you couldn't do anything. Yeah. I'm thinking that must have sucked. You can't even go to school and be a shithead. It's like you're stuck with all the time. It's not like I'm gonna call your mom. It's not like the teacher's threatening to call your mom. It's like, no, there's no one to call. You're stuck.
Right. And I was still kind of a shithead, but my mom was a very strong, hardworking, no bullshit lady, and her name was Betty, and her nickname was Black Betty. She was also very firm. She was very fair. And when, she and I would talk about dog training, it was so similar to the way she taught. And she would go to the ends of the earth for her students that really tried. If you didn't try and you just wanted to piss away her time, no, she's not going to help.
Right.
But, My word of advice is, if your mom is a teacher at your school, don't skip school.
It's not like she's not going to find out.
Somehow they always find out.
Yeah. Have you read Your Kids Are Your Own Fault?
Yes, and I love it.
Yeah, I'm not finished with it all the way through, but because I take a while to read books because I always put them down in the middle. But that's a great book. Like, that's a dog training book as much as it is parenting. I don't have kids, but like, that's a dog. I read it because that's a dog training book.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell when I have my call before clients officially sign up with me, like I have a consultation call with them. And when it comes to discussing accountability, which is really what you're talking about, I always use real life examples that are so obvious to everyone.
Yes.
Like I got a speeding ticket, right? And I like going fast. It's fun to have the windows open, to blast music. My hair is in the wind, and it's a lot of fun,
Yep.
right? And I got pulled over. And as soon as I got pulled over, I gave the cop my license and registration. I was like, all right, give me the ticket. Like, I knew what I did go wrong. I was going really fast.
Yep.
And after that, though, I'm more careful. I've driven a lot since then, and I'm much more careful.
Right.
Now, if you gave me a $5 ticket, I guarantee you I would speed all day. Because $5 to me once a day is worth it to go as fast as I want, right?
Yep.
And that's how we're all safe on the road. That's why we can all drive safely on the road, because when I drive like an asshole, I get in trouble for it. And when someone else does, hopefully they get in trouble.
Right.
And what that does is it ensures that we could all get to our destination safely, right? And with that, it makes so much sense to most people. It's such an obvious thing. When it comes to dogs, people struggle with understanding it, but if you think about it, it's literally the exact same thing. You want to go for a walk on the street with your dog. You want someone else to be able to walk with their dog on the street too. Now, it's your job and it's that person's job to both hold your dogs accountable to some basic like manners rules so that you can walk past each other safely and enjoy life. It's that simple. That's really all it is. That's what accountability is. And the fact that it's become some mean thing is what's very strange to me, because everyone understands why I got that speeding ticket. Because if someone else saw me driving, they'd be cursing me. I'd be like, you're driving like an asshole, right? Rightfully so, I was. And everyone gets that. And it's normal. And I deserve to be punished for that, right? And the punishment worked because now I drive slower. And when it comes to our dogs, all of a sudden that becomes mean. And I think that's the part of, I guess, emotions that ruins our dogs so much.
Oh, 100%. And I think anything that has anything to do with animals in general, like the emotions are just out of control. And we've wussified our dogs and we've wussified our kids, and it shows. But the moment you mention punishment or correction or accountability, oh no, you know, it's like a horrible, horrible thing. But it's not. I mean, it's really not. I live by rules every single day.
Yeah.
And if I choose to break them, I know that there are consequences. And being a human being, you can think them through, you know. But you have to have some accountability with dogs. And you have to have rules. And you have to have corrections. And it makes for better dogs. I mean, it just does. And
there's no system that anybody can name that works that doesn't have accountability included in it. There's none. Like, you can try it. There's none. At some point, you're going to find a way that there's somebody being held accountable to keep to that system in order for that system to actually work properly.
100%. You know? And it's not a bad thing.
Right. It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing.
Because systems of the world, of society, allow us to exist together, right?
Yep.
It's a beautiful thing. Without those, we don't exist together. We don't enjoy life.
Right.
And that's ultimately what I think most owners' goal is with their dogs. I just want to enjoy life. So you got to have a system. You got to have rules. You got to have accountability.
Yeah. And I've had clients literally cry, just cry, because they've been frustrated and stressed out for so long. And I actually, like, I'm not on the phone with them going, yeah, I can tell you what to do. I actually listen and hear what they're saying. because I have been in those shoes. I've had the asshole dogs, and I didn't have anywhere to turn. And I figured it out myself, but my job now is to help other people, first and foremost, know that there is hope.
Right.
There's work to be done, but there's hope. Because a lot of times people have been told that there is no hope for their dog anymore.
Yeah.
No, there's no hope for your dog. And I don't buy that. There are some dogs that are, yes, 1%ers, genetically whatever, challenged or whatever. But the majority of dogs, like, I've never said to an owner, there's no hope for you or your dog. I've had to have real conversations and change things, get people to change things. But to just flat out say, yeah, nope, your dog's a lost cause. There's no hope.
It's an easy way out.
Easy way out.
Yeah.
But I'll take your money.
Right. It's an easy way out. My golden retriever was diagnosed as having neurological issues by a trainer that couldn't admit she couldn't help him. Not when I owned him, because when I got him, I was already training dogs. Mm-hmm. But and he's a freaking golden retriever. Like, he's smart as hell. He was just a nutcase because he was a golden retriever without rules. So he did whatever he wanted. But the easy way out was to say he's not trainable. Right. As opposed to saying I'm not capable of training him with the way that I train dogs. Exactly. Which I would respect that, right? If a trainer whose way of training, whatever that is, doesn't allow them to work with certain types of dogs and they just say that, yep, I have a lot of respect for that person. The problem is they blame it on the dog. Yeah,
it's honest.
Yeah.
I am not able to help you with my style of training. That's honest. But to just go ahead and say, there's no hope, your dog needs to die, whatever, that's shitty, man. Yeah. At least recommend another option, like second opinions. I encourage people to always get second opinion, whether it's dog training or medical or a lawyer or whatever. And you're uncomfortable with the first assessment or opinion, get another one.
Yep. And I've sent dogs to other trainers. So I was like, I don't want to work with this dog for whatever reason it was. Mm-hmm. But here's a trainer who could help you, right? Here's someone who I think is more capable than me to help you with your dog because it is very extreme or because whatever the reason is in those situations, right?
Right.
And that's the right thing to do, right? Yeah. Rather than either taking the case and not actually being able to do it or acting like it's an ego thing. If somebody's ego is too big to say, I can't do it. I can't. Yeah. I don't know. Right. To me, that's like the most honest thing you could say is, I don't know. I want to hear someone say, I don't know. It's important.
Right. 100%. And when did it become not okay to say, I don't know, or I can't help you, or this is not, my skill set, or I don't work with aggressive dogs, whatever it may be. That's honesty. And put your ego aside, people, and do what's going to be best helpful for the owners and the dog.
Yeah, absolutely. So my question that I'd love to ask everyone, I don't know if you know it already. If you watch this, you might know it, so then you're kind of prepared, but hopefully not. So if there was one thing that you wish every owner knew that you can tell them, what would it be?
That they have options. That they don't, if something isn't working, they have choices. And that they should not feel bad, guilty, or any of those things about making the best choices and decisions that best help them and their dogs.
Yeah. You're not stuck with what you're told is the only option.
No. And don't let anybody bully you. You know what? Do what's best for you and your dogs. And don't look back.
Yeah. So I've worked with so many people who, until just recently, I had a couple of these who, until they found out that I existed, or that we're back to calling it balanced training, existed, that they thought the only option was purely positive. And the only option was basically to keep living a miserable life with their dog, right? Or to put the dog down. That was the only two options. And if people just knew, like you said, if people just knew that there are options, you don't have to take those options, but they exist.
Right.
It would, so many people's lives would be better. So many dogs would be alive.
Like there's just no question about it. And I think that some people may not know that they have options, but some people know they have options, but they feel guilty or ashamed or bullied into not pursuing them, because it's all over Facebook, it's all over every page or whatever. Purely positive training only, or your dog will suffer irreparable damage for the rest of time. That's bullshit, man. And people have got to start calling bullshit bullshit.
Yeah. And the worst part about it is that it leads owners to suffer and struggle, humans struggling, and dogs to dying. And it's such a simple thing. Like, to me, it makes absolutely no sense why, if there's another option, that you should ever say death.
Right.
I don't get it. And people throw that one around so easily as professionals that, like, that's an okay option to just throw out. Every 4 dogs that you work with should be killed. Like,
Yeah.
That's an issue. That's a serious issue.
Yes.
And it's okay if you don't want to do those options as a trainer. I have no issue with that. But don't make other people believe, owners believe, that those options are bad, because you're killing dogs and you're forcing owners to suffer. Because no one, like, I can't imagine what it would be like for an owner who puts their dog down and then finds out they didn't have to.
Oh my God. I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. I like it. It's you're creating such emotional damage to a person by doing that. I can't imagine.
Like, and I have had clients say, I wish I would have known about you 10 years ago or 20
My
years
other
ago,
dog.
or whatever it may be, because they wouldn't have suffered and they wouldn't have put their dog down because they didn't know. Death before discomfort is such a horrible reality. And I have always, and I decided when I started my business that I was going to be not, like, I wasn't just going to follow blindly every other trainer and not speak out about it, because that's kind of been my jam. Like, I'm going to tell the truth, and maybe people want to hear it, maybe they don't. I don't care, but I'm going to tell the truth. And that is that people have options, and you shouldn't feel guilty, and it's not evil, and it's not mean. It's none of those things. I mean, I don't know. I guess emotionally, some people need to believe that. But if it results in the death of a dog that didn't need to be, that's a hard pill to swallow for me.
Yeah. And as much as you get hate for being real about it, because I know you get your fair share of that, the way that I look at it is, hate is worth it if one owner actually found out they don't have to kill their dog.
100%.
If one owner found out that they don't have to suffer anymore. And to me, like, it's worth it. Like, call me a dog abuser, say all the stupid shit that you say, send me the messages. I'll take it, because one owner is not struggling anymore. One dog is still alive. And to me, that's worth it.
100%. And when I get to feel like I'm just beat to shit and just like raked over every coal, I focus on the dogs that I have helped and the future dogs that I will help.
Yeah.
And the dogs that aren't dead.
Yep.
And
I have list of messages that I look at in those times, or cards that I open up a drawer and take out a card from a client,
right?
that tells me how I changed their life. And it's like, all right, like Sally Pants 21 on Instagram, like, who said I'm a dog abuser. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, this is real. I have it in paper, right? You keep with your comments and all of that. I'll keep with this, and I'm good. It doesn't count against each other at all.
Right. Because the way I look at it too, and I think that's valuable, because like I'll have like a down day, like somebody's like, you're the biggest piece of shit, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know anything about dogs. And then I'm like, and over time and the constant pounding at you,
yeah,
it can wear on you. And then I'll get a message from a client, we had the best day ever, and I was able to walk my dog past 4 dogs no reaction at all. And I'm like, okay, that's why I do this.
Yep.
You know, but
It's the only thing that gets you through it. It is emotionally tolling to deal with all of that shit. It's supposed to be. It's why people do it.
yeah,
They want you to stop.
yep. And I think what that has pissed a lot of people off is that I just keep showing up every day, every day, every day. Oh, there's Julie again. She won't quit. No, I'm not going to quit. But there was a particular time when my dad was diagnosed with brain cancer, and like I was so emotionally just like hurt. And it was a really hard time. And that was when some real serious hate was coming my way. And I seriously thought about quitting. Because, you know, why would I keep doing this to myself? But I told my dad at the time, I said, you know, Dad, I'm going to quit and I'm going to move in with you and I'm going to take care of you. And he looked at me and he said, no, you're not. He said, you've worked way too hard, way too long. You're not quitting now. And so I didn't quit. And I'm not a quitter, but I'll tell you, that was a particularly rough patch for me.
Right.
And it's just, like, people just kept pounding on me, you know? And I'm like, I'm just trying to help dogs. But I had a trainer that I admire so much that I reached out to and really talked me off the ledge. And I think that's why I get so upset when I see some trainers kind of bashing on each other.
Yep.
And supporting. There's no shortage of dogs, guys. And I train perhaps differently than you do, perhaps differently than whoever. But as long as you're helping dogs and their owners, who gives a shit?
Yes. This has been in my mind a lot recently, this one. Yeah.
Me too, especially in the climate that we're in now. Everything's so uncertain and everything is terrifying. Why are we focusing on like hating on each other? That I don't understand.
Yeah, and the thing is, if so many trainers say we're in it for the dogs, and if you're sincerely in it for the dogs, then shut the fuck up and be in it for the dogs. But if you're in it for something else, it shows when you start to hate on another trainer.
Oh,
because now there's ego playing. Because if it's bothering you what other trainers even doing, the fact that you even know about it and the fact that it even has a place in your mind says more about your ego than the amount you actually care about dogs. So go check yourself, because you don't really give a shit about dogs then. You just care about ego and you feel threatened.
100%.
And that's what I see. Like, and I don't care if you've been in it for 100 years training dogs or you just started yesterday. If your way of whatever it is that you do is to hate on other trainers, to me, it says a lot about you as a person. Get yourself in check. And even if you disagree with that person, it still doesn't change anything. And at the end of the day, if we're all in it for the dogs, there should be a united front. It should be a dog training community, not everyone hating on each other. And when I see all that, it's like, it makes me start to question, like, what really are you in it for, right? And what is this really about for you? Because for me, I don't give a shit what other trainers do. I mean, obviously, this is the extreme. Like, if somebody's killing a dog, all right, they shouldn't be training dogs, right? But like, I don't care what trainers are doing. I care how my clients are doing. I care how their dogs are doing. I care how my followers are doing. Like, the people who reach out to me for help, I care how you're doing, how your dogs are doing. When people send me messages on Instagram and like they show me their success and I never met them, that's what I care about. I don't care like what some trainer the next street over or the next state over or the next country over is doing. Like, who cares? I'm in it for the dogs. I'm in it for the owners, not for other trainers. And to me, it's you're gonna sink the whole ship by hating on each other.
That's probably the best way to put it. If it continues, the whole shebang's going down. And I think that's why it's so important for us to speak out and not bash other trainers, because I'm like you. I don't give a shit. If you're truly helping dogs and people, do whatever you're going to do. I don't have time to worry about you. But if everybody keeps pulling each other down and beating the snot out of each other, the whole ship's going down.
Yep.
And I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Like, I celebrate anybody who's having success. Shouldn't that be what we all want for each other? Cheering each other on, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I like everybody else, because I don't.
Right. And you don't have to. That's the beauty of like this world. It's like you don't have to like each other. Like we all ask dogs don't like each other, just coexist. Like
Right.
take a little bit of your own medicine and learn to coexist and leave each other alone. It's so simple, you know? And I think like the thing is that the balanced training community, since that's what we're calling it, can put aside if every trainer who likes to argue with each other just stopped for a little bit and actually united just for a little bit, then you can all go back to your arguments in like a year or two, right? And argue about it and scream and yell at each other. But there's like much more at stake the way I look at it, that it's not worth the arguments right now about what's the best way to create the art of dog training. Like you can all go back to being dog training artists afterwards. Right now, like let's actually make sure dog training is going to exist in 5 years.
Yes. 100%. And, you know, like you said, we don't have to like everybody. I mean, we're not going to, but shut your pie holes, man. Stop trying to police everybody. Who made you in charge? I don't care how long somebody's been doing it, but I think the most important thing is when some people think that they know everything, there's nothing new to be learned. Then their ego kind of takes over. Like, I know it all. Like every dog that comes in here, I learn something from.
Yes.
And I try to once a year attend a seminar or a program or something to continue my education, network with other trainers. But it hasn't happened recently. You know, I've been super busy, but then now travel is like wonky.
Yeah.
But when you stop learning and you think you know everything, you need to get out.
Yeah. I've always say when I think I know everything about dog training, I'm going to quit and go learn something else.
Right. Then I'm going to go be an auto mechanic.
Well, I won't do that because I'll fuck every car up. But like that's to me, that's a big beauty of dog training is you're never going to know it all. Like you said, every single dog that I work with makes me think, makes me do something slightly different than I did before, makes me learn something new. And that's the beauty of working with animals is that they're not cars, right? They're not like a simple put the screw in and it's fixed. And like, I'm sure there's more to fixing cars, but to me, that's what it looks like. And like, there's so much more to it because it's a living, breathing, thinking, feeling being that we have to be able to somehow fit into that and help it and change it. And to me, that's what I love about it, that it's always changing, that it's always something different. I would get bored if every dog was the same and I knew it all. I'd be done. Like it's boring. And I'm not that type of person that can do that. I need something new.
Yep. And I joke with my clients when they send or they call or whatever, and they're like, I'm like, you know, we get into, is there any aggression? Has your dog ever bitten anybody? And they're like, no. And then I meet the dog and it's like a super sweet, you know, cupcakey kind. And I'm like, wow, that's a breath of fresh air. But then a week later, I'll get in one that's growly and snarky and all this. And I'm like, okay, switching gears now with this dog, because I go about it differently with each dog. It may look like it's all the same. She's doing the place command again, you know, but it's not. I don't film 24/7. And so I show a 30-second video or a 4-minute video and people read into it what they want without even knowing what we have done the 6 days leading up to it or the 4 minutes leading up to it, you know? But I just love the diversity, not only in the dogs, but in the clients. Because I find it very interesting.
That's what I love about board and train so much, though. Like if I have 3 board and trains in at a time, which is generally my average number, right? I can have a 6-month-old golden doodle who's just like needs to learn some manners and how to chill, and then put that one away and take the dog out from the cage right next to it that wants to eat me.
Right.
I got to switch gears, right? I got to me, that's like one of my favorite parts of doing board and trains and having the dogs with me is like from second to second, I got to be able to change, to have control over myself, to approach it differently while at the same time having the same rules for every dog in the house. And they both work together, that like different for every dog and same rules for every dog.
Right.
It works together, right? And
Right.
it's a very cool, beautiful thing to be a part of, to do that.
Yes.
And it definitely is that ever learning experience, right? Like if I forget that this is not the easy go lucky golden doodle, like my finger is going to be missing. It's that simple, right? You can't forget.
No, you can't. And, you know, I encourage, I think recently you took some time just to spend you and your dog. And man, I cannot encourage people to do that enough. The last time I left here was 2 years ago, and I went on a training, you know, thing. So it wasn't even like a vacation.
Right.
But it kind of was, because like flying freaks me out terrible. I am the worst flyer on the planet. And my dad built his own airplanes and flew them, so you would think I wouldn't be.
Cool.
But I'm petrified to fly. So it takes me way outside of my comfort zone, which is what I love about it. But I haven't left Ashland in like, I don't know, a really long time. And my husband said the other day that I need to take a vacation. And I'm like, right.
Okay. It was important for me. My summer was crazy. Thank God, like not complaining, but I was crazy busy. Didn't have a second to breathe at all. I live 15 minutes from the beach. I think my feet touched the sand once the whole summer.
Oh, wow.
And I planned it into my schedule because I was looking at my calendar before the summer really started. And I was like, this is going to be nuts. And I planned it in that September starts, I'm taking off. And I took almost the whole month of September off, really. And just like, I traveled with two of my dogs, the boys. They're the travelers. I traveled with them for a little bit, just went on the road, visited some friends in Jersey, just the point of being able to breathe, right? And it was the best move I made because like burnout is real, you know?
Yeah. And I'm proud of you. It's important to do it. I come from a family of workaholics. My mom worked all the time. But that's what breathed the life into her. And I think I'm kind of the same way, but I do know that I need to take a step back at some point, but it just isn't going to happen for a while. But I do send Jeff away. Like I send Jeff away a couple times a year just so he can keep his sanity. Because
it's like, you got to go.
Get out.
You need a break.
Go. But that's the other thing too. If you're going to do this for a living, like we are, you got to have people in your life that support you. Because like my mom, she supported it on a little level, but it wasn't a real job. But my dad supported me a ton, and they're both gone now. But Jeff has supported me since day one. And, you know, that's why I kick him out like twice a year so he can like regroup himself. But you got to have that in your life. You have to have people around you that understand. You can't just leave for 2 days or leave on a Saturday night and go party it up with your friends when you've got 3 board and trains in and 2 of them have terrible separation anxiety that might break out of their kennels or hurt themselves, you know. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I wouldn't do anything else.
All right, let's wrap it up. It's been over an hour and a half.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I was enjoying it. So let's wrap it up. Everyone who's watching, thank you for watching wherever you watched. If you're listening, because I know some people listen, I'm curious where you're listening to it. So if y'all are listening to this, not live, but on let me know where you listen to it, because this goes on a bunch of different platforms and I don't even know exactly how that works and where this thing goes to. So I'd be curious about that. So if you're listening to this on one of like the audio sites, shoot me a DM on one of my social media platforms and let me know where you listen. Thank you all for tuning in, though. Thank you, Julie. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. I had a great time talking with you. We can go on forever. And you want to let everyone know where they can find you, follow you, social media, all that stuff?
Yes. And first of all, thank you. It's been a blast. But Julie Starns, Good Decisions Dog Training. Julie at gooddecisionsdogtraining.com, www.gooddecisionsdogtraining.com. Just all over Facebook and stuff. I'm not so good at the Instagram, but I try.
You try. That's all that matters, right? You got it, though. All right, guys. So Good Decisions Dog Training on everything. And gooddecisionsdogtraining.com. Go follow Julie. She's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Love you all. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Julie. This was a lot of fun. Hope you all have an awesome night. Love you all and stay kind.
Yes.